Okay, so this episode is going to have the easily pleased and excitable, very excited and very pleased. They won't see anything else except for the last few minutes. Now, this episode once again clocked in around the 30-minute mark after credits and intro. So, what actually happened in it? Episode 4, Fallen Jedi. Hu Young is trying to patch up the ship, with comms being the priority. Meanwhile, Ashoka tells Sabine that Ezra will have to be sacrificed to stop Thrawn. If they can't get the MacGuffin, then no one can have it. But at the time that they're talking, they get spotted by some red shirts and they're attacked. But the red shirts are red shirts, so they're easily defeated. During that fight, we get the first live-action droid-on-droid fight scene. But for some reason, that didn't receive the fanfare from the media. Afterwards, Balin sends Marok and Shin to deal with Ahsoka and Sabine, just as they're setting off to stop them. As they set off, Hu Yong tells the two that they work best together, and he asks them to do so again. Meanwhile, Hera disobeys a direct order and decides to go after Morgan, and some X-Wing pilots volunteer and follow her. And of course, because we saw Zeb in last season's Mandalorian, so, it's nice to see that he's Oh no, he's not. He's not reunited at all. Instead, they have the other pilot, Carson, the one that Din made the bounty hunting deal with instead. Because why would you not reunite the Ghost Crew, eh? It's not like we spent 4 seasons with them, and it would make more sense that Zeb would be willing to help her and, more importantly, break military law for her. Meanwhile, Morgan is downloading the coordinates to Thrawn on her ship from the surface of the planet. Now, Balin's protecting the MacGuffin while Sabine and Shin have their fight and Ahsoka and Merrick have their fight. So he's just waiting, doing his best. Now, Ahsoka defeats Marek, or whatever he's called, the one with the Inquisitor blade. Because he's male, so he got to go. And we get a rematch of Sabine and Shin, with Shin coming out on top again. Ahsoka gets the upper hand. Cut to the fight scene between Balin and Ahsoka. Now, during the fight, she gets the upper hand for a brief moment, and she picks up the MacGuffin, but it burns her and she drops it. Now, Balin fights her to the edge of the cliff, easily overpowering her, before Sabine turns up. Ahsoka tells her to destroy the MacGuffin, but Sabine hesitates and, he drives Ahsoka off the end of a cliff. Oh no, she's dead! Sabine threatens to destroy the MacGuffin, but he knows she won't, as it's the only way to find Ezra. Because she has an attachment to him. The things that Jedi are forbidden of. Anyway, he plugs the MacGuffin back in and the coordinates are established. He destroys it so they can't be followed, and off they go to far, far away. As the baddies go into hyperspace, the effect of it destroys 2 X-Wings. Think the Holdo maneuver from The Last Jedi. The last scene of this episode, which is all that people will remember and talk about, is Ahsoka is alive! But is now in the world between worlds, and she hears Anakin's voice and turns around, and there he is. He looks awful, but there he is. So that's the plot of today's episode. Now let's break down some of the scenes. Now this was very heavy on the action today, and by Disney Star Wars standards, it was done very well by and large. It's clear that this team care more about and have a bit more understanding about lightsaber duels. They aren't clear about the power levels of them, but at least the time has been spent on choreographing some scenes. I enjoyed Ahsoka's ruthlessness when talking to Sabine about said MacGuffin. Though I'd say this was very much in the vein of Obi-Wan and Mace Windu, but it was very important and it had a good setup for later on. If we can't have it, then no one can. I enjoyed the fight scene between the 2 droids. Give us more of that, it was quite entertaining. Though it is amazing that the scuffle wasn't both heard or sensed. Now, we've had 3 previous episodes of her banging on about how she's a general in the Republic military. Yet now she goes AWOL at the drop of the hat, as though rules and regulations mean nothing. She still doesn't seem to have handed over the holotape footage to argue her point. Now, being a general doesn't make you the top of the tree. There's still a command structure to follow. And it seems she's only a rebel when a general when it suits. Now, in Rebels, she was the one that followed orders. It was the crew who didn't, and more often than not, it cost other people their lives. The scenes between Marek and Ashoka, it was enjoyable. But if everything is some samurai homage, and you stop paying tribute to it and you're just copying it, it loses its effect. Now, can I add happily, I was very, very thankful it wasn't Starkiller. After all, why waste his character, given that his story is really good to watch, and it would be wasted as this 2-bit baddie. The Force Unleashed should have been made already, but it's too late for that now, I think. Sabine and Shin's fight. Why doesn't Shin just use the Force to kill her? Yes, I know the scene has to progress, but she Force chokes her later on. So why not now? Sabine has no defence against her. I did find it interesting that she loses her helmet. I only say that because they hang on to it in shot for quite a bit of time. Now, I might be reading more into it, but it seems to be telling us that she needs to lose her Mandalorian side to progress her Jedi abilities. Balin and Ahsoka's fight is really well done. I liked how they switched different stances throughout. I said in my first review that the scenes here are better than anything we've seen in the sequel trilogy, and I stand by that. I also find it very interesting that when you watch a lot of lightsaber fights, be it live action or animated, how often it is that it's the Jedi that spark the lightsaber first, and therefore initiating conflict. The battle they have feels like the sabers have weight behind them, and that you need substantial training with them to wield them effectively. Ray Stevenson does an excellent job as Balin throughout the episodes. He has a presence about him and confers authority on those around him. Now, I often get the feeling that he only kills if forced to. Now, they diced the ship's crew from episode 1 really easily, but would it have gone that way if the captain wasn't smug? He even tries to talk with Ahsoka to run down the timer, and he says how inevitable when she sparks her saber. Now, later on, at any point, he could have killed Sabine or used the Force to get the MacGuffin off her, but he chooses a different path. He talked to her and even stopped Shin from Force choking Sabine because he made a promise. He still has a vestige of honour, perhaps. And we get more backstory with his conversation with Sabine than in the last 3 episodes. Why doesn't Ahsoka trust Sabine? What led to her family's deaths? Now, maybe it will get explained in later episodes, but we got quite a lot in what seems a throwaway line. Now, on to the last scene. This, I think, is going to throw up far more questions than answers. How is Anakin there? Is it him from a different universe? Did he access it in the same way Ezra did? Is it a trick, much like how Palpatine tried to trick Ezra? Now, most will lose their mind at this, and it gives just enough to generate interest and buzz for next week's episode. Now, part of me thinks this reveal should have been saved for next week, but I get what they did and why they did it. This gets the normies and the Disney fans super hyped. I enjoyed it well enough. It didn't make me squeal, but mainly I just hope they've thought about how to explain it. Many people won't have the slightest clue what's going on, and I hope they've put a lot of thought into it. Overall, this episode is better than the others, and infinitely better than the last few Star Wars series. That's it for me. Bye for now.